am so excited to be looking around this room and seeing it filled up so much. I think what that tells me is that the conversation we're going to be having today is a conversation that a lot of people are interested in having. So hello, my name is Kira Macoun. I have been a member of the People's Lobby for almost 8 years now. And thank you. And for many of you, I know I see a lot of familiar faces here, but I also see a lot of unfamiliar faces. And so I want to make sure that y'all know what the heck the People's Lobby is, right? And who we are community members, us, we're right here, that are committed to creating policies that work for people and planet over profits, and electing officials who are interested in the same thing. And so what we do is we co-govern with our officials to make sure that the policies that we want enacted are enacted, and then also kick the bums out who don't do it. So that's what we do at the People's Lobby, and we also help with the actual policy creation. So we're a busy group, and there's going to be opportunities for those of you who are interested in joining up with us at the end to do just that, and to step in and say, hi, I'm ready to take this on with you. All right, so today, oh, also I want to give a shout out to Jerry in the back, who's going to be doing the video. He is from Chicago Corner. You can find us on YouTube, and we are a Chicago-based channel that specifically speaks to what's going on in the city of Chicago. So welcome, Jerry, and thank you for taking the time out to do that today as well. Okay, so we have panelists today. You may have noticed, right? So we have Representative Will Gazari, Representative Lindsay LaPointe, Senator Rob Martwick, and then Laura Pelican from the Illinois Department of Insurance. And it makes sense, right, why they would be here today. We're going to be working shoulder to shoulder with these folks to get the policies that we want. We're going to be talking about the history of healthcare in Illinois. We're going to be talking about how the climate is now, insofar as that is concerned, and then what's possible in the future, what we have coming up, what's actually like in legislation. And then, of course, we have Laura here at the end that's going to help anybody who's dealing with issues presently in regards to healthcare, going to be helping with some ideas of how to get around some of the things that you might be dealing with. All right, we'll switch. All right, so this is our agenda today. So we've already got the first part done. Boom, already success. And then we have a presentation that's going to be hopefully very educational, and some of the things are going to sound very familiar to you. So, and then presentations from our panelists. Like I said, they're going to be taking us through the history and where we are now and where we could go. And then we'll be taking time for small group discussions, because I know that all of us are impacted by this broken healthcare system that we're inside of. All right, and I think one more. So I don't have to tell anybody in this room that our healthcare system is kind of a joke, right? Preventative care doesn't even exist, right? And then what I think a lot of us deal with is when our medical providers are saying, okay, you need to go get this thing done, we're getting denied from our insurance corporations. So what we want to do is put a stop to that, essentially. But we want to have a broader conversation as well about healthcare in general, right? But today we will be focusing on claims denials, because look at this. Can you believe 700,000 claims get denied every single day in the United States? Can you believe that? That ain't right. No, it is not. And so we're going to be focusing on this issue today. But stay connected with us, because we will be focusing on many, many more issues in the future. But for now, I want to introduce our first speakers. We got Kathy Bailey coming up, and Sue Harvey, who are going to be talking a little bit about claims denials and what's behind them. Come on up.
So, how we are denied health care. We
going to talk about common ways in which the insurance companies manage to deny us care. Closer? Is that good? Okay. Pre-existing conditions. Who decides? The pre-existing conditions is like being told, we can't help you because you need help.
That ain't right.
Excluding pre-existing conditions means that those who need care the most might not get it, leading to worsening health and potential financial ruin. We all know that's common here in the U.S. Prior authorizations. Does pre-approval mean anything? Needing approval from insurance before getting certain treatments is like asking for permission to use your own stuff. It can delay critical care and add administrative headaches, and there are countless examples of insurance corporations granting pre-approval and midway through care changing those permissions, resulting in surprise bills and enormous stress. Anyone here experience that?
Yep.
I just did it the other day. Coverage gaps. Inadequate coverage. The coverage gap is the portion of the doctor bill that your health insurance doesn't cover. So you have to pay what's left. Never mind that you kind of already paid this when you paid the health insurance. There's another coverage gap, which depends on where you live. A lot of red states have refused participating in Obamacare, so many of their poorest residents aren't offered the government subsidized health care. We're lucky we live in a blue state, right?
Now we're going to talk about complex policies, lost in the translation. Trying to understand some insurance policies is like decoding an ancient language. The complexity can lead to misunderstandings about coverage, resulting in unexpected costs. And that doesn't even take language barriers into account. Out-of-network business partnerships determining your healthcare network. Restricted provider networks are like exclusive parties, but not everybody gets in. This can mean longer travel for care, limited choice of doctors, and sometimes lower quality of care. The people making these decisions are basing them on profitable relationships and what is easiest for them, but not what we need. This can look like surprise bills and not getting to see the doctor you know, or the doctor that was recommended for you. Looking around, has anybody here in this room experienced something like that? Please raise your hand. Look. Okay, that ain't right, but take a look. This is our community. To me, it's not, or to us, this is very interesting, but not surprising. Annual benefit limits. There's a limit to how much the insurance will pay in a year, which can be problematic for people with chronic illness, or if you happen to have a major health crisis. It's like having that safety net that disappears poof, when you need it the most. Automated denials. How fast can you hit the no button? It takes real effort to put out those 2.5 million plus denial letters every year. United and Humana were most recently found to be using AI to systematically deny care to members, and they're probably not alone.
That ain't right.
And that ain't right. And there is an entire corporate industry in claims denial management that exists solely to help insurance companies to deny claims even faster. The challenge we face navigating these systems underscore the need for clear, fair, and accessible health care solutions. We need dignified health care. Now, we have a couple of members here who want to share their story with us about how they have been impacted by corporate health insurance greed. Please welcome Kira.
Yay!
from Oak Park, and I've been volunteering with the People's Lobby since 2016. It was the same time that I got some really bad medical issues, and I went to many doctors, but none of them could figure out what was wrong. So my doctor is really awesome, and he supported me going to see a specialist who I saw in 2022, and they ordered lots of blood tests to see what could be wrong. And I got a referral, and I went to Quest Diagnostics, and Quest said they take my insurance, everything should be good and covered. And a few months later, I get a bill in the mail from Quest, and so I called them to see if they could resubmit to my insurance. I called them many times, and they kept trying to resubmit, but my insurance kept denying. So then I called a nonprofit called the Patient Advocate Network, and they called my insurance with me and talked and spoke for me. And my insurance said that it should have been covered. They don't know why, and they'll file a grievance. Well, I got a letter in the mail from my insurance and said that the claim was still denied, and that they sent a letter to Quest saying they're not going to pay, and I should just ignore the bills from Quest. And there was no way that Quest would just ignore my bills. So I filled out the application for assistance from Quest, and they never got back to me, so I contacted them, and they said I had qualified for 50% off, and they were changing my bill while I was on the phone with them right now. I contacted them many times after that. That didn't actually happen, and my bill is in the collections for the full amount of $11,000.
That ain't right.
That ain't right.
Yeah, but I knew this could happen because the same thing happened to my mom. She got a surgery that was approved, and after surgery was performed, her insurance company refused to pay. A lawyer said there was a good chance that she might not win, and then she would also have to pay the lawyer fees. At that time, the medical bills were so high that she couldn't, resulting from the denial, that she couldn't afford to keep her insurance. So she went for a really long time without insurance, and that just ain't right.
No, that ain't right.
I'm Aaron McManus, and thank you all so much for coming. It's very necessary that we fight. I want to tell a couple stories here. My mom died of cancer a few years ago, and the last months of her life were spent fighting with her insurance company instead of ticking off her bucket list and spending time with her family. These were for medication refills that she was already taking, and every single time it was denied. Every single time it had to be fought, every single time it had to be reapproved. Only 8 months after she died, I found out that I had cancer too. Of course, they approved my surgery to get a football-sized tumor removed from my kidney. So I was surprised right after I had the surgery that they said they wouldn't be paying. They said it wasn't medically necessary, which I thought was kind of funny for a giant tumor with a 95% fatality rate, because what the hell's more medically necessary than that?
Yeah, that ain't right.
But they had that nerve. They had a retired gynecologist reviewing my records. I thought for sure it would be upheld on appeal, like, come on, there's no way they're not gonna say this is not medically necessary, but no, they said it was denied. They said they wouldn't be paying and that I would be on the hook for $40,000.
That ain't right.
Not right. But what I'm here to tell you is that collective action works. I could have called a lawyer, I could have gone through the process, but frankly, I'm not patient. I posted on TikTok on Saturday morning, and I shamed the shit out of that insurance company for having a CEO make $19 million a year and having the square nerve to tell me that my tumor was not medically necessary to remove. And the cool part was, when the insurance company called me on Monday after that TikTok got almost 1 million views, they had the nerve to act like I was somehow it was a problem. Do you know that 700 people called on your behalf? Wonderful, great, I'm so glad. Do you know our entire department was worrying about you all day? Wonderful, delightful, that's great, I'm so glad to hear it. And it was surprising to me, and then they had the nerve of the insurance, our executives want to make sure that you know that you're not upset with them. I'm like, no, I am. They are absolutely responsible, 100%. This is their fault. And this makes sense, you know, if you're like the state of Illinois. The other part I put in this TikTok that I want to mention is that they've done this time and time and time again. Anthem is not even Anthem anymore. They've changed their name time and time again to avoid the PR of like the fact that they've been like fined and they've been censored and they've gone to lawsuits time and time again, but it's all a drop in the bucket. If someone was to say to you, like, hey, pay $10,000 to make $1 billion, you'd write the check. Assuming you had the money and you hadn't already spent it on healthcare. But about 500,000 people saw my TikToks and about 1 million people saw them and hundreds of people called. And this whole damn system has to change. We need our lawmakers. Thank you all for being here. I'm not talking about you specifically because you're here in this room. But we need our lawmakers to fight for this change. We need aggressive punishment of these insurance companies so that this is not a drop in the bucket. We need universal health care. And I want you to know, there's two things that are really key to know. In England, universal health care came because we demanded it as a human right. And when it is understood as a human right, then people understand why it's necessary. This is not debatable. This is not who gets to have what privilege. Do you have the privilege to live? In Canada, Ontario was the first province to get universal health care. And after that, 10 years later, the rest of the country followed. So Illinois has the opportunity to be the first state to declare that health care is a human right, to put universal health care into place, and we need your help to make that happen. So don't give up, don't surrender. It's time to fight like hell to get the health care that we need. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Kadria, for sharing those stories. And I know that a lot of us have stories that sound a lot like that. And we want to hear all of those stories. And that's why a little bit later we'll be getting into small groups for sharing. Also, be sure to be filling out your little cards for questions. We'll be going through and picking them up so that we can ask our electeds those questions as well. But for now, we're going to be calling them up to give presentations around what is going on in the state of Illinois in regards to our health care and claims denials. Representative Will Guzzardi is going to be starting us off with a few minutes about what the current climate is in Illinois.
Or the current plan or the history? One of the two.
Yeah,
History.
a little bit of both. A little bit of both. Good afternoon, everybody. It's wonderful to see you all. And I'm sure hearing the stories that we just heard, the question that's on all of your minds is, how the hell did they get away with this, right? How do these insurance companies, how can they possibly run their companies this way and still be allowed to continue to do so, right? And the answer probably won't surprise you, which is that the insurance industry, the health insurance industry in particular, has a very powerful lobbying presence at the federal government and in our world in the state government too. And for many, many years, they have used that lobbying presence to influence the kind of policies that we make in Illinois. And I think that maybe I want to talk about one particular piece of legislation that passed in 2011, and that was sort of maybe the biggest gift to the insurance industry, and that speaks directly to this issue around claims denials. And it's going to be a dark tale, but I want to end with a little more of an optimistic note of some changes we made recently. So in 2011, we passed a law called the SMART Act, which basically privatized Medicaid in Illinois. So Medicaid was a government-run program that provided health insurance to millions of low-income Illinoisans. And basically now, it's not true for everyone, but almost all of the 4 million Medicaid enrollees in Illinois, 4 million people in this state have Medicaid, a third of our population. Almost all those people now have private health care. So their Medicaid isn't run through the state of Illinois anymore. It's run through Blue Cross or Aetna or one of these private providers. And so this obviously is a huge boon to those companies, right, who now have 4 million new enrollees. But I want to talk about this claims denial piece because it's so, the way this works is so critical to why we see so many denials. Because the way it works is that the state pays these companies a certain amount of money every month for every Medicaid person, every Medicaid enrollee they have, right? So every person on Medicaid, they get a couple $100 from the state of Illinois every month. No matter whether that person sees no doctors or sees 1 million doctors, right? No matter whether that person fills no prescriptions or 10 prescriptions, the insurance company gets the same amount of money. So what's their incentive? What's their financial incentive? Their incentive is to spend as little as possible on every person in Medicaid, right? Because every dollar they spend providing care to those folks is a dollar they don't make in profits. They're getting the same amount of money from government no matter what. So they want to spend as little on care as possible. And the strategy they've zeroed in on is claims denials. That they are telling the hospitals and the providers who serve Medicaid patients, no, we don't cover that, sorry. And they are counting on having more bureaucratic red tape and more accountants and more people to make your life difficult, that folks will just eventually give up and throw up their hands and say, you know what, I'm just gonna pay, because I just can't continue trying to bill and getting denial after denial after denial. So this privatization, where we shifted from government running his healthcare, a big healthcare section in Illinois, right? We shifted from government running it to the private sector running it. We saw the incentives shift from providing healthcare to maximizing profit. And that's why claims denial has become such a huge part of the healthcare landscape in Illinois. But I told you I was going to end on a positive note. And I want to say that the anger and the frustration that so many of us in this room feel about this broken system is being felt in Springfield too. Yes. And we passed, just last year, we passed monumental new legislation, House Bill 2296. It's called rate review. So now these health insurance companies, when they want to raise your premiums, they can't just set them wherever they want. They have to come before Illinois state government and make a case as to why they're increasing the premiums, and the state can say no. The state can say, that's too much. You don't need all that money. You need to set lower premiums for people because you're just trying to maximize profits and not provide good care. So that rate review is one of many pieces of legislation that we've embarked on in the last few years to finally try to curb the power of the insurance lobby. They're still very, very powerful. But our voices are powerful too, and when we stand together and fight, we can change the way that policy gets made in Springfield. So thank you all for being here, and thanks for staying in this fight with us together.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Next up, I want to call up Senator Rob Martwick, who's going to share with us a little bit more about what is going on in Springfield in regards to health claims denials and healthcare in general.
Thank you, and good afternoon, everybody. As I listened to the stories, so sorry to hear about your story. And of course, we said, who's got a story? We all raised our hands. So I'll just tell you mine. I actually needed some pretty extensive throat surgery. And this is like 20 years ago, but still, it kind of gives you an idea. And I went to the hospital. So I'd gone and I'd seen my doctor, and then I saw a specialist. And the specialist said, we have to fix some stuff in there. And it was pretty extensive, right? They're like, it'd take at least 3 weeks off of work. It's going to be a long recovery. And so I was prepared for this. And so the day of we scheduled the surgery, the day of my surgery arrives, I go to the hospital, change into the gown. I'm in the room waiting to be taken off to the operating room. They put the IV in my arm. It's just saline at this point. You know, they haven't started the drugs yet. They'll do that once they get me there. But I'm sitting there relaxing, and my phone rings. And I was like, I wonder who's calling me. And I picked up my phone, and it was the insurance company. I'm lying on the gurney, waiting to be taken to the operating room. And at that point, they decide they're going to deny my coverage.
That ain't right.
Right? And I'm like, what do you do? I was like literally thinking, do I need to pull the IV out of my arm? Right? Go home now or what? And I went through the surgery. I had an incredibly long fight to get the coverage. I was getting sued. I was in collections, but I fought, and I did finally win. But it's tough. The other thing that I would tell you about, and this is sort of surprise, right? Like, what do you get? What is, all the coverage is so complicated. What does it mean? And whoever thinks, I never really understood this. Co-pays and then out of pocket and all that. Like, what does that mean? Until 2016. And in 2016, my wife and I decided, I know you're going to be shocked at this, I had my first child at 50, right? And so my wife gets pregnant, and it turns out, well, she was 40, so she had geriatric pregnancy, wound up having that gestational diabetes, needed all sorts of special care. And then they found out that my son had developmental problems in the womb, So all sorts of care with that, and then we literally didn't know if he would be viable. They literally told us, like, we don't know if he'll be viable until he's born. Imagine the stress of that, right? So the moment he's born, he gets whisked off to the NICU, and there's all sorts of specialists looking at him, and good news is he's fine.
Great.
And 6 weeks after that, after we go through all of the geriatric pregnancy and the problems with my son and all the specialists, 6 weeks after that, I had a heart attack. Okay? I found out what out of pocket means. Okay? Because I maxed my out of pocket, and what I didn't realize that $8,500 out of pocket was per participant. So that year, out of pocket, after taxes, I had to spend over $25,000. Who's got that kind of money in 1 year? So I understand this issue. I've lived it, and people shouldn't have to go through this. I'm lucky. I was able to get through it. But not everybody does, and the devastation that it leaves is generational. It's generational because those collections mean that you can't build wealth. There are things that you cannot leave to your children. It can affect you generationally. Good news. We are working on stuff. Rate review is going to be wonderful, and thank you for the Department of Insurance for all the good work that you did bringing that about. There's so many good pieces of legislation. There are legislations that are out there right now, bills that are out there right now that are seeking to rein in these costs, make sure the prescription drugs are covered. I've got a whole list of them here. I'm not going to go through all of them because we want to hear other people talk. I do want to talk about one that I think is kind of interesting, and again, because this fits in that doesn't make sense, right? So literally small providers like a psychologist who's providing a single office to them, providing care in a single office, a couple of people, not a big corporate medical entity. The insurance companies are saying when they are reimbursed for the expenses that are covered under your insurance, are saying to them, we'll send you a check. And they say, oh, could you just do like an electronic transfer? And they say, yeah, but that's 5% more.
Oh, yeah.
They're literally charging 5% for a cheaper option. And like, how does that make sense? And well, where does that extra 5% get passed on? To us. So that's a bill that's coming up. We're working to eliminate that. There's a whole bunch of good ones, like I said. And I see my time's running out, so I won't take any more. But thank you so much to the People's Lobby for doing this. This is democracy in action. This is how we make changes. And I look forward to hearing from all of you. Thank you.
I'm right here. All right, everybody. So Maeve is going to be going through the crowd to pick up your questions. So be sure to hold them up or have them on the ready for her to swipe them from you. And next up, we're going to be having Laura Pelican in from the Illinois Department of Insurance to talk a little bit about their role in all of this and hopefully be of help to those of you who are dealing with some issues right now.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I have a pretty big mouth. I probably don't even need this, but I'm Laura Pelican, and I'm with the Illinois Department of Insurance. There's multiple units within our department, but for those who don't know, we do not sell insurance. We regulate insurance. So the role of the Illinois Department of Insurance is to protect consumers by ensuring that the entities licensed by the Illinois Department of Insurance are following state and federal laws. So that's very important, and it's good to know because apparently as we go to events throughout the year, throughout the state, we learn there are people out there that don't know we exist. So know that we exist. I have a lot of slides, but I'm only going to focus on a few, but I have handouts of everything. So, and they're in the back, so you don't need to write notes necessarily because phone numbers, email addresses, all that will be in the handout. So, just so you don't have to write quickly. So I already mentioned this about our role. You can go to the next one. Karen, thank you. And you can go to the next one. So, the Office of Consumer Health Insurance, that's what OT is for short, is part of the Illinois Department of Insurance that helps consumers with complaints, the complaint process, if you've had a denied claim, We do other health insurance besides, we do other insurance besides health insurance, but today we're focusing on healthcare. But just so you know, and I'll share this as we move on, the folks that work at OCHI are familiar with the laws and regulations. They can help answer questions you might have about the policies you have. Keep going. So what I wanted to mention is, even though we do regulate a lot of insurance companies and entities, we do not regulate all of them. And this list is going to look kind of long, but these are the areas or health insurance type plans that we do not regulate. And that is because certain health insurance like Medicaid and Medicare are not overseen by the Department of Insurance. It's either Healthcare and Family Services, Department of Aging, and other areas or agencies within the state. But so this list will be included in the handouts that I'm going to share with you. But you can see basically ACA marketplace plans, a lot of private health insurance companies that you might have through your employers. Most of them are regulated by the Department of Insurance. So in terms of filing a complaint versus an internal review and external review, I saw a lot of hands go up when we heard some of the stories of the people who are here today. And I know Aaron mentioned the fact that he did a TikTok video, thought about getting a lawyer. But before people even get to that level, I think most people know, if you've been through an issue, that you start with your insurance company. You go to the company that's providing your plan, and you tell them, I don't agree with this denial. So then the second step is, if they come back after you ask, to please review my claim again, and they say no, you can get an external review. In the state of Illinois, the place you want to go for that to get assistance is the Department of Insurance. So don't think if you get a denied claim, you're done, because you're not. And this gets into the detail about what we can and cannot do. Like, for instance, we can't give you legal advice. We can't tell you which insurance company to use. However, depending on if you have an ACA marketplace plan, there are navigators when you're looking at plans that kind of help walk through the different types of plans, kind of educate you so you can make more educated decisions on the plans that you choose. So depending on your situation, you may need a complaint, or you may need to do an internal and then external review. If you're really not sure where you are, because I think most people tend to go right to their insurance company, and maybe they're denied even after they've had a conversation. Like I said, you can call the Department of Insurance. There's also a website with a lot of information about how to file a complaint, the process. I just want to say two really important things to remember. One, put everything in writing. Everything in writing, because phone conversations, it's he said, she said. There's no real paper trail. So you really need to put things in writing. And second of all, use copies. So if you have original documentation and you're sharing it with the insurance company, make copies of those documents and make sure you keep your originals. So just something to keep in mind. And I'm running out of time. So as I mentioned, two important things: put things in writing and make copies of all your documents, okay? And then I will, like I said, have all this information in the back. But there's a consumer complaint form. You can do one in writing, you can fax, you can email, you can call, okay? So I hope that was helpful for those of you who didn't know about additional resources. Thank you.
Oh, no, I thought that was great. Thank you so much for being here.
Sure.
Thank you for that information, incredibly helpful. And last up, I want to call up Representative Lindsay LaPointe, here to talk to us a little bit about some legislation, I believe, that is going through right now, specifically as it pertains to mental health.
Yes.
All right, awesome. Take it away.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for being here. This is a really good turnout that uplifts my heart. And I'm here to talk about another aspect of healthcare, which is mental health care, or what a lot of us call behavioral health care, which means mental health care, substance use, addiction issues, and trauma support. And I really believe, as I know many of you do, not only is healthcare a human right, but mental health care is healthcare. So everything we just talked about, everything you just heard is not just about physical health care, it's also about health care. And I myself come from a social work background, so I hold this all deep in my heart. We have a few bills related to, well, actually we're going to have a lot of bills, let's be real, about mental health care access and behavioral health care access this spring, and I'm going to touch on a few of them. First and foremost, there's a concept many of you are probably familiar with called parity. And in the context of healthcare and mental health care, parity means that the insurance benefits that you get for your mental health care cannot be less generous than your physical health care benefits, because mental health care is health care. And so we want all our policies and laws to reflect that concept. We actually have a long way to go. One of the problems that we are all dealing with right now is for mental health providers, and that might be a private practice licensed clinical social worker, a psychologist, an LCPC, a psychiatrist. We have all these different levels of professionals who do this amazing work. A quarter of mental health providers have taken themselves out of insurance networks and said, I'm not even going to deal with insurance. People can just pay me. They can write a check, they can pay cash. So what that means for us is, even when we have insurance and we go to use it and you find a mental health provider that works for you, that provider says, I actually don't even take your insurance, I don't take any insurance, you can just write me a check. So you're paying your monthly deductible, and then you are also, if you want the therapist that works for you, if you're so lucky to find that person, you also have to pay whatever it is. Sometimes it's $100 a visit or even more. So we have a bill to help with that this year. And just to be really clear, this pertains just to commercial or what we call private insurance that is regulated by the state. So it's not going to be everybody's insurance plans. But what this bill will do is create a floor for how much behavioral health providers are reimbursed. And right now, there's a ton of inequity in terms of your physical health providers are reimbursed at a much higher rate than your mental health providers, which is one of the reasons, if you're a mental health professional in the room, and I know we have some, you're endemically underpaid when you compare yourself to physical health care. So this bill is called the Strengthening Mental Health Substance Use Parity Act, and it would create a reimbursement floor to make sure our mental health professionals are actually paid more when they provide this support and treatment that we desperately need. The other thing it would do is create a much more efficient process for something called, bear with me, it's a little wonky here, credentialing and contracting. So if you are a licensed clinical social worker, you've opened up your private practice, it's a challenge to create a contractual relationship with Blue Cross Blue Shield. They have to go through a process to make sure you have all the right licensing, that's called the credentialing process, and then they have to put you on a contract so you can get paid. And why this is important, it means we can use our insurance that we pay for to access mental health care, which is just health care. So I'm very hopeful about this bill this year. When we go and talk to our colleagues from around the state, now more than ever, people understand that everyone around Illinois should have the right to access their mental health care. And these types of wonky policies, that's how we get there. One other bill we have coming up that's related to all types of health care deals with something called ghost networks. And maybe you've heard of what ghost networks are. It sounds kind of cool. It's actually not. It's not cool. It's scary. A ghost network is when you're looking at your provider booklet, maybe you got new insurance, and it says there are providers in your network, but when you go to call, they're actually not there. They close down, they're not taking any new clients, whatever it is. So this bill coming up, it's HB 5313, will demand more transparency in what to do if you encounter a ghost network, and it will force insurance companies and the state to do more audits. So we get rid of ghost networks. They are not a cool thing. And that's what I have for just two of many, many bills coming up that are really related to mental health care access.
Thank you, and thank you to all of you. And I just want to echo that. Yeah, mental health is physical health. Physical health is mental health. They're not separate. So now this is our opportunity to start to get into small groups. Yay! So I would like for the group leaders. What's that? Q&A. Oh, we're doing Q&A. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry guys. I got those flip-flops. My bad. All right, so we have Q&A. And also, just so you know, we got a lot of really excellent questions, and there's absolutely no way we're going to be able to get that done now. And so all of those answered now. We will answer several, but we will also send those questions off to our electeds here so that we can get them answered for you. So we appreciate all of your contribution, truly, truly, truly. Okay, so the first question is, how can we help guarantee good health care for underemployed and unemployed people, both citizens and immigrants?
Yes, thank you.
How can we help guarantee health care for underemployed and unemployed citizens and immigrants? Yeah, let's hop up here since there's a microphone up here and it doesn't stretch too far.
Really quick.
Right, awesome.
One quick answer to this is Medicaid is our program that we have that's partly funded by the state government, partly funded by federal government. And if we want, it's for our low-income neighbors, if we want quality health care and mental health care out of Medicaid, we have to raise Medicaid rates, raise the amount that we, the state government, is going to reimburse providers, because right now the Medicaid reimbursement rates are way lower than commercial and private insurance rates. So what it means is providers are getting paid a lot less, and it means they're deciding they don't want to take Medicaid at all, or they're going to work in a Medicaid healthcare setting for maybe 2 years and then they're going to move on. And obviously when your provider keeps turning over, especially for mental health care, that's not high quality health care. And another thing we have going on in Illinois is, you heard about Medicaid. We have a Medicaid look-alike program for folks that are undocumented, over 42 years old, and for all children. So there's a gap there if you're over 18 and under 42, but we do have that in Illinois right now. We're one of the few states to have it.
One of the first.
Yeah.
One of the first, yes.
Yeah, really quickly, I think that's worth celebrating and underscoring, which is that Illinois was the first state to provide Medicaid coverage for undocumented senior citizens. And we've expanded that coverage now to where it's 42 and up. And like Lindsay said, one key thing is to close that gap, right? To make sure it's not just people of a certain age, but everyone regardless of immigration status. But I think also Medicaid this is where it all happens. All these questions, I mean, people get insurance basically two places. One is from their job and the other is from Medicaid, Medicare or Medicaid. But from the state perspective, Medicare is run by the federal government. Medicaid is where it happens. So for folks who are financially vulnerable, who don't have full-time employment, who don't get that insurance from their work, Medicaid is the place we have to focus. And just to underscore Lindsay's point, the state doesn't spend enough money on the Medicaid program to make it appealing for doctors to serve poor patients, right? So doctors just say, I'd rather not. And then poor patients don't have places to go. So this is when this issue starts to reach into our larger conversations about the state budget and do we have enough money to invest in the services that we need, and if we don't, why not, and why are corporations of very wealthy people paying less taxes than they should, and shouldn't we hold them accountable to paying their fair share so we can actually fund Medicaid properly? But it's going to take real money to do what Lindsay talked about, to raise those reimbursement rates so that doctors say, oh, I'll see the Medicaid patient and the private insurance patient. Real money. And so that's where we're connected to this larger fight of the state budget and fair taxation and structural change to that system.
Thank you. Okay, next question is, how can we, without burdening family members by putting the responsibility on them, support at-home care and alternative health care options that insurance companies refuse to cover today? Anybody want to take that one? All right, come on up.
This is very related to the last answer that we just heard. And as it relates to healthcare, we as state folks, we have a lot of say over Medicaid, we have a lot of say over state regulated health insurance plans, but we have to change laws and policies to force Medicaid or to anything we have control over to cover in-home care and in-home support, because I think what we all know is healthcare isn't only accessed in a hospital. Healthcare isn't only accessed in a doctor's office. Healthcare is accessed in home, in the community. We have health-related social needs like housing and food access. And so we often have bills in front of us that ask us, are we going to expand Medicaid to cover this portion of in-home support or that portion? And the answer should be yes. And then, how much are we going to pay those in-home workers? Because if we're paying them an extremely low rate, folks aren't going to want to do that job, which is a hard and meaningful job. And even if insurance covers it, you won't be able to find a home health aide. So we not only have to cover it, and we have to have rates that are adequate enough to get good quality workers to the table who can earn a decent living doing very valuable work.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes. We definitely support workers' labor getting paid fairly as well. So it's very important. Next question. Why doesn't Illinois have a universal not-for-profit health care?
And how can we get it?
Finally, an easy one for me.
We need single payer.
Yeah, so obviously, really, I mean, honestly, the answer is more simple, right? It really is. I mean, this is an issue that starts at the federal government. Obviously, there's more that we can do at the state government, but there's limits to how far we can go. We're sort of penned in by what the federal government does. And so, of course, a while back, as we all, I mean, there's been a couple of times in history where we've tried to move forward with the idea of universal health care coverage, health care for all, and it has failed at the federal government. Efforts to make, to rein in insurance are happening at levels, I would say, that have never been seen in Illinois. And I want to give credit to the governor for that and his leadership. Certainly, we as members of the General Assembly, there's much that we can do. But there's so much that's being done by the Illinois Department of Insurance right now. But ultimately, getting back to your question, nonprofit healthcare coverage for all, universal right? I mean, a human right to have universal coverage. It's like the answer starts right here, right? It doesn't start with us. We can't get there unless you are all engaged in fighting for that, because right now we have a federal government that is not willing to do that. They're continuing to prioritize health insurance as a profit-driven entity with the idea that that form of competition will provide better results for everybody. So that's where we are. And it's really that simple, unless you guys want to add something to it.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And we do have one more question, just a yes or no. We'll go down the panel. Hopefully a yes or no answer is workable for this.
Your menopause.
Yeah, right. Just yes or no, guys. Okay, so is universal health care possible in Illinois? Probable in Illinois? We'll start with you, Representative Guzzardi.
All I can think of is a long answer that's not. Is it possible? Yes. Yes.
Okay,
it's possible.
Okay, wonderful.
Yes, it's possible eventually.
I think it will happen eventually. I think that's where we're going. It's just, this is not a one-word answer, but the pace is not going to make anybody happy. We've got to speed it up.
Right on there. And how about?
Yes, anything's possible. If you have the right laws and people in place.
All right, great. Well, and it is starting here. We're here, that's what we're here to do, right? Is to make Illinois a leader in creating universal health care for its citizens. Okay. Segue. Time for small groups. All right. And I'm sure of it this time. All right, so we have small group leaders that are spread out around the room. Would you mind standing up? Group leaders, so that everybody can see you. We got Aaron over there, we got Jackson, Jamie, we got all kinds of people. Okay, cool. Oh, and right here. Okay, awesome. Cool. Now, what we're going to do is the folks that are around the leaders, you're going to sort of huddle up to them, right? Like swarm them a little bit. Swarm sounded like a really scary word, so I didn't want to use it right away. Yeah, so go ahead, gather around the group leaders. They will have questions that you will all be discussing. And the questions will also be up on our PowerPoint in a moment. We're going to start getting debriefs from each of our groups, from the group leaders. We got about 30 seconds for each of you to do a debrief. So we're going to just jump into that. Just continue working on whatever you're working on. However, if there's still things for you to do. I can take them. We'll start with Will.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Debriefs for your small group. Yeah, just a short debrief. Oh, Will, I thought you were the leader over there. My bad. Adria. Just do debrief. Like what, if you were to summarize, what the conversation was, what the theme of the conversation there was, or if somebody from your group wants to volunteer.
Kira, can they come up from their group?
I don't know if we'll have time for that. I don't think we'll get to it.
I'm ready if you want.
Yeah.
Roll around with the microphone.
Just ask them to speak loud then.
All right.
Hey, stand up.
Stand up and shout.
Yeah, to advocate for yourself. HMO and PPO are both bad and things about them.
HMO, PPO are both bad. Advocate for yourself.
And we want healthcare for all, but when we trust like some certain people in government to have our best interests in like stuff that they don't agree with.
Yeah, so there is a desire for universal health care, but do we trust our elected officials to deliver on that fully, ethically, right on? Yeah, awesome. And then Isabel.
Advocate for yourself.
I think the two big things from our group, and anyone feel free to jump in, but the first is that like even if you have insurance theoretically, it doesn't actually work in practice. And the other thing is the guardrails that are set up to protect people don't actually work. And even if you're advocating for yourself, you often can't get what you need.
Yeah, so everything is a dead end, right? No matter who you are in the insurance conversation, it's a dead end. Yeah. No, Kate was, I believe. Oh, Kate, there you are.
Cobra is too damn high. It's hard to avoid Medicaid disadvantage, even though it's garbage. And it's like general experience, pretty much everybody in our circle of claims denials for eyes, teeth, all of the things, pregnancy, yeah.
Well, I heard that eyes and teeth were extra, so.
Yeah, those don't count. Eyes, teeth,
don't
brain.
count either.
Yeah, so that's our report.
Awesome, thank you. And then we got Nicholas there.
So we were able to talk about the great work that the Illinois Department of Insurance does, and the different options that people have when they contact them, and then also just the general frustration of being denied life-saving care constantly, and then the difficult process of bridging that and getting the care that you need.
Well, and how aggravating that you actually take on the responsibility of getting insurance and then you just get denied that care anyway. Yeah. Anyway. All right. Beth, were you a group leader?
No.
Or who was your Jamie?
So our group, talking about the claims denials part, everybody knew somebody that had somebody deal with the denial. Some people in the group, their families that had large, $15,000, $20,000 claims. One thing that came up a couple different times and was on the board is this idea that when you go to the doctor and you receive health care or they recommend health care, you don't know how much it's going to cost you out of pocket when you walk out. And that it might take 2 weeks, it might take 8 months before you know how much you actually have to pay. So one person in our group said that they had put off recommended testing because they just didn't know how much it was going to cost and felt like they couldn't afford it. And so,
yeah, that's what I always thought was funny about like the whole ambulance conversation, right? Which is like, oh, let me shop for the ambulance I need before I call them, right? Jackson.
Yes, so the kind of running thread in my group was a lot of the need to play defense, talking about the need to include the health plans like Medicare that should already be available to everybody, but are under attack from being privatized. We heard the story about a friend of someone here on Medicare Advantage who had a broken arm, went to a hospital like a day later, was told at the hospital, oh, sorry, you're not in network. This is someone on Medicare Advantage. So they had to wait 4 more days with a broken arm to actually go get it covered. And when they finally got it treated, insurance didn't pay all for this thing, so that was an extra $900 bill. And this is someone on Medicare. So we need to keep an eye towards everybody when we're moving forward on making healthcare available to everyone. And lastly, physical therapy having a limit based on days that you're receiving it, not when you no longer need it. That ain't right.
That ain't right. No, I agree with that. And also with that, like, oh, we can only work on your shoulder because it's your shoulder that's hurt. Body's a system. All right, Aaron.
We had quite a few healthcare providers in our group, which was awesome, but we talked about kind of the horrible squeeze of not being able to get your patients the care that they need and not being able to get the care you need yourself. And kind of being at the whim of the insurance companies and trapped in the middle of not being able to do the job that you set out to do and not being able to like actually survive yourself. So kind of an awful place to be trapped.
So thanks everyone for participating in small groups and filling out the Post-its. We're going to compile them, and so feel free to keep filling out Post-its and we'll collect them at the end. And we'll compile them and share them with our panel so that they can get your feedback as well. But we did the Post-its for the answer to the last question. And so just to shout out a couple, getting affordable coverage that is accessible, no coverage for novel therapies, affordability is an issue. I avoid getting care because I worry about coverage and bills I can't pay, which just shouldn't happen. And insurance denials for psychiatric treatments are just a few of the things that were pointed out. So thank you so much for your participation. We have just like a little bit to wrap up, and thanks so much.
Turn it over to Kate, the head lady in charge.
Hey y'all, how are you feeling? How's everybody feeling? I want us to leave here feeling empowered and feeling hopeful, okay? Because this is hard, and we can see how many of us are experiencing this. So there's a lot of us, not just in this room, but everywhere, and together we can make these changes. So what I want to share with you, like now what? This is my favorite statement. This is my statement of the moment, my mantra: power concedes nothing without a demand. So in May of 2018, my husband was diagnosed with psoriatic arthritis, and in that process, he started trying all kinds of medications and seeing doctors. It was a roller coaster. Even with the two of us taking notes on every call, staying on hold for hours, literally, asking for supervisors, threatening to contact the Attorney General's office, and at times breaking down in tears and begging people to help us. My husband still ended up on the sofa in the living room because he was in too much pain to get up and down the stairs. The health insurance company, United Healthcare, refused. Go to Facebook, OptumRx sucks, join their group. They refused to give him the medication that his doctor prescribed until he took all these other medications that we already knew didn't work. That ain't right. So we didn't have care over cost at that time. I didn't know about care over cost at that time. And that is a campaign that's run nationally that there are several organizations in Chicago that are members of. And it allows us to create the collective power that it's going to take to win healthcare for all. So we know that individual claims denials are what we're all experiencing. And we're not going to ask everybody to get on TikTok like Aaron was skilled enough to do. We can't GoFundMe our way individually to getting the health care that we need. So we need to organize. We need to be powerful. We need to stay in touch with each other. We need to stay together. We need to show up at these direct actions. Thank you for y'all who have been there. Thank you for all who have been there. And then my co-chair, Maeve and I are co-chairs of the Healthcare Task Force with the People's Lobby. We would love you to join us, and Maeve is going to give you the details on how you can do that.
All right, hi everyone. I'm the last speaker for today, so just so you know. I didn't say that for the applause, but I'll take it. And actually, speaking of applause, can we give another round of applause for our panelists? And I'd also like for you to applaud yourselves for showing up and for so as Kate said, my name is Maeve. She and I are co-chairs of the Healthcare Task Force of the People's Lobby. And I am passionate about healthcare because I'm a mental health provider. And I have done a lot of unpaid work because when my clients get their claims denied, I'm not the type of person that's going to send them to collections. Which means a lot of my work is going unpaid. And that's not ideal, but that's the way it is. And so we need people who are covered across the board, and we need to end medical debt. But none of this is going to happen unless we have enough power to demand these changes. Our task force, the Healthcare Task Force, is dedicated to building that power. These are the ways we do that. We elect healthcare champions, like the folks up here. We win incremental changes that are building blocks towards our bigger goal of healthcare for all. And we align ourselves with a national campaign like Care Over Cost. So small group leaders, if you haven't already, please pass out the commitment cards. If there are some groups with extra commitment cards, please hold those up for the groups that don't have enough commitment cards. Because it was not an exact science. So I'm just going to go over it quickly. So please fill out your information. If you have a story about claims denials, we'd love to hear from you. If you need help, we'd love to connect you with the Care Over Cost campaign. We have monthly meetings. The people who planned this task force, or this town hall, are members of the task force. And if you're interested, we'd love to have you join us. Our next meeting is on March 2nd, and we'll have a new member orientation before it for anyone who's unfamiliar. If you can't be at that task force meeting, but you're interested in participating in some way, there's a line for that. Also, this is a slide aside, but it's still connected. We have been canvassing for Bring Chicago Home. For those of you who don't know about Bring Chicago Home, it's a measure that's going to be on the ballot in the Chicago election in 4 weeks from Tuesday. And it is restructuring the real estate transfer tax so that most people get a tax cut when they're selling their homes, but the homes over $1 million will get a slight increase, and that will fund wraparound services, which include healthcare services like substance abuse counseling and mental health counseling. And I think we can also all agree that dignified housing is a form of healthcare. So it does connect. And so we have a few canvassing services listed on there. If you haven't canvassed before and you're going to canvass on the Northwest Side, I will personally train you and maybe even canvass with you. So please show up. We'd love to have you. This event was put on by the People's Lobby. If you would like to become a member of the People's Lobby and support us, there is a QR code where you can do that. And there are a lot of different ways to be involved. And so we have a space in the bottom for people to fill out like anything that you'd like to share with us, any skills or talents or anything that you might like to do to help participate in this work, because it needs all people. So just to wrap up, I want us to take a second and imagine what a new healthcare system could look like. Imagine a system where when you feel pain, you can go to the doctor before it worsens. Imagine a system where you can see any therapist and not worry about whether they are a network. Imagine a system where healthcare providers of all types are paid a living wage, meaning we can recruit and retain more healthcare workers. Yes! And like, I'm not under any delusions that this is gonna happen tomorrow or even next year, but it's possible. And it's going to be possible if we build the power that we need to see that change. So please take a moment and think about what role you can play in that movement, and let us know what that can look like for you by filling out your commitment cards. Together, we can make real change happen, and together, we can win a better world. Thanks, everyone. Yay!